Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Over the weekend, we did two videos discussing very concerning online reports of huge outbreaks of HMPV, a respiratory virus causing flu-like symptoms across China, with stories of hospitals and crematoria overwhelmed. HMPV, part of the same family as respiratory virus RSV, has been known since 2001. It primarily circulates in colder seasons and can cause complications such as bronchitis and pneumonia, especially in the elderly, young children, and immunocompromised individuals. In my weekend videos, I warned that we are quite blind on the ground in China, and it is hard to verify the reports, especially considering the sensitivity of such things within China itself. As such, we needed to cautiously follow developments closely. After several days of speaking to dozens of contacts across China, many of whom I connected with during my coverage of China during the zero COVID years, I can cautiously make a few points here. 1. China is indeed seeing higher than normal rates of people experiencing flu-like symptoms, but that 2. The initial online reports of seriously overwhelmed hospitals across the country, with sites similar to what we saw during the COVID days, appear to be largely exaggerated and in some cases sensationalized, though some hospitals, including in Beijing, do appear to be strained by the numbers. However, the HMPV spread is a real thing, and neighboring countries from Japan to Vietnam to India are watching the situation closely as it spreads to their own populations. Indeed, cases have been found in neighboring countries already, including now Malaysia. And of course, with memories of the pandemic still fresh in many minds, many experts in these countries do not trust Beijing's statements on the nature of the spread. With that said, what are health experts in these neighboring countries saying? Unlike COVID-19, HMPV is not a novel virus. Global immunity exists due to prior exposures, making pandemic-level spread unlikely. However, its impact, particularly on vulnerable groups, remains notable. Currently, there is no vaccine or antiviral treatments for HMPV, though research is ongoing. Experts emphasize the importance of preventive measures to manage transmission. Practicing good hygiene or staying home when sick are good strategies. These simple actions can protect high-risk groups and reduce the virus's spread. Epidemiologists caution that currently the world is not facing a major health emergency. Jacqueline Stevens, an Australian epidemiologist, for example, expressed yesterday, quote, "The increased prevalence is likely the normal seasonal increase seen in winter. The reported high prevalence amongst children also reflects what we know about the virus. It is a common cause of childhood respiratory illness." End quote. So it appears that China is just experiencing a particularly nasty winter flu season, and there currently is not any reason to worry too much. If the facts on the ground change, however, if things become more serious, I continue to speak to my contacts in China and do visits myself here, then we will discuss the situation again immediately here on China Update. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to keep on top of these updates specifically. For now, however, let's continue with regular developments. Chinese technology giant Tencent's US-listed shares plummeted nearly 10% in trading on Monday, following the Pentagon's announcement designating the Chinese technology company as a, quote, Chinese military company, end quote. This move is part of Washington's ongoing efforts to counter China's military expansion by targeting entities allegedly linked to its military-civil fusion strategy. Tencent, owner of the widely used messaging app WeChat, was among several firms added to a Defense Department blacklist, citing indirect or direct ties to the Chinese military, the PLA, or People's Liberation Army. The list, unveiled in a federal document, aims to curb the flow of advanced technology to China's military, which the Pentagon alleges benefits from civilian industries like technology firms, universities, and research programs. Despite the designation, being on the list does not carry immediate legal consequences, but poses significant reputational risks. Tencent's spokesperson called the inclusion, quote, a mistake, end quote, asserting the company has no military affiliations. While the designation has no direct impact on its operations, Tencent pledged to work with the Department of Defense to resolve the what it called misunderstanding. Other notable additions to the list include CATL, the world's largest EV battery maker and key supplier to Tesla, as well as chip maker Changxin Memory Technologies and drone maker Ultel Robotics. CATL, like Tencent, disputed the classification, emphasizing its non-military focus. Of course, as regular viewers know, it has been long known that many of these large national champions that operate in the civilian or civil realm in China do have varying degrees of formal and informal connections to the state, and in some cases, the military. Starting next year, companies on the list will face restrictions on business, with the Pentagon escalating to a complete procurement ban by 2027. These measures underscore heightened US-China tensions as both nations impose export controls on critical technologies. We will return to this later in today's episode. For now, let's move to the next development, which is related to the economy. In recent days, China's top stock exchanges have met with foreign money managers. I should point out the top exchanges are Shanghai and Shenzhen, and investment banks to explore ways to boost sentiment among international investors, following the worst start to the year for the markets since 2016. Beijing leadership always talks about getting a good start to the new year, but in the first 3 trading days of 2025, the PRC stock markets have gone down every day. The discussions come after a shift in monetary and fiscal policy aimed at easing economic conditions, which has raised expectations for the country's economic outlook. In separate statements, the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock markets highlighted that the meeting involved 16 overseas institutions, which expressed optimism about the government's resolve to stabilize growth. Participants suggested that more presentations on Chinese policies and roadshows by blue-chip companies would help foreign investors better understand the country's economic dynamics. The exchanges reported a consensus that a combination of existing and new policies would strengthen long-term investor confidence. That's what they said, at least. Now, despite this would-be positive outlook, the Chinese stock market has faced a lot of volatility. The CSI 300 index, which tracks onshore stocks, fell nearly 3% on the first trading day of the year, continuing a trend of uncertainty. However, foreign investors remain important players in China's market, holding significant stakes in yuan-denominated stocks. Meanwhile, in a move that likely will not help with market confidence, whether with international investors or domestically, UK-based Reuters reports today, citing 3 unnamed sources, that China's main stock exchanges, again Shenzhen and Shanghai, asked some large mutual funds in the country to restrict stock selling at the start of the year. Quote, at least 4 large mutual funds received calls from the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock exchanges on December 31st and January 2nd and 3rd, asking them to buy more stocks than they sold each day. End quote. Not a positive sign. The markets opened down again today, with the CSI 300 now down almost 6% over the last 5 trading days. Next up, we have one more development to cover, but just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button. Liking, sharing, and especially subscribing is a tremendous help for the channel. It is just me making these every day, and keeping the algorithm happy is the only way in which the channel can grow and be shown to new people, so this is a tremendous help. This channel is also primarily supported by you, subscribers. I'm often asked in the comment, where do you get your funding from? There are 1 to 2 sponsored features per month. Then the rest of the income for the channel, the majority of the income for the channel, comes from direct subscriber support. So if you'd like to support the channel, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Next up, and finally for today, we continue with our coverage of the ongoing US-China technology and trade competition. China has escalated its economic countermeasures against the US, starting 2025 by blacklisting 10 American defense contractors as so-called unreliable entities, and barring 28 others from purchasing dual-use components that could serve civilian and military purposes, very similar to what we just saw with the Pentagon in the US. The move follows increased US arms sales to Taiwan under the Biden administration and serves as a warning to President-elect Donald Trump about Beijing's willingness to protect its national interests. The targeted companies include defense giants General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon's RTX, along with Boeing's Defense, Space and Security Unit. While most of these firms conduct limited business with China, the blacklist signals the tools Beijing could deploy more broadly against American corporations in future conflicts. Indeed, Elon Musk, who is very close to the upcoming Trump administration, sold 40% of Teslas in China in 2024. Beijing's actions reflect its long-standing opposition to US arms sales to Taiwan. General Secretary Xi Jinping reiterated this stance in his New Year's address, emphasizing the inevitability of China's reunification with Taiwan, to use his words. Despite Beijing's warnings, US administrations have consistently provided Taiwan with defensive weapons under the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act. The latest sanctions could prelude further economic confrontations, particularly as President-elect Trump has vowed to increase pressure on China through tariffs and a transactional approach to Taiwan. Experts warn that Beijing's ability to restrict $477 billion in goods exported to G7 nations and jeopardize $460 billion in foreign investments could have significant global repercussions. Though China must also weigh the impact on its own domestic economy. Indeed, I would personally argue that as exports remain one of the only bright spots on China's growth performance over the last 24 months, Beijing would be wise to risk undermining its trade, especially considering it is facing trade conflicts with major partners including the US, the EU and others. Bill Reich, a former Commerce Department official and now a chair in international business at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a Washington-based think tank, says that these sanctions are mostly symbolic, expressing over the weekend, quote, "I think that's why they're doing it. It is a shot across the bow. These are things that are designed to remind the current administration and the next one that they have a lot of influence on the supply chains, and they have a lot of influence on the global economy, in part by virtue of their interaction with us." End quote. Meanwhile, China has also employed broader economic strategies in recent years, and this escalated in recent days too, with China stepping up scrutiny on the export of advanced technologies used in producing battery materials, aiming to safeguard its dominance in the global battery and electric vehicle supply chain. Over the weekend, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce proposed adding specific lithium refining and battery chemical production technologies to its list of controlled exports, inviting public feedback on the draft regulations until the 1st of February. The move reflects Beijing's intent to protect critical innovations developed during its ascent as a leader in battery production. The proposed restrictions focus on emerging methods like direct lithium extraction and advanced chemical compounds used in cathode production, which are vital for battery performance. Analysts see this as a strategic effort to shield China's proprietary technologies from international competitors, particularly amid escalating trade tensions with the United States and others. While the controls are limited to high-end products, they could affect future overseas investments, particularly joint ventures with foreign firms. Analysts at Citigroup noted the measures aim to preserve China's leadership in premium lithium iron phosphate (LFP) batteries rather than broadly restricting exports. The announcement follows China's recent bans on exporting materials with high-tech applications, including gallium and germanium. As global competition intensifies, these moves underline China's strategic approach to retaining its edge in critical industries or responding to mounting pressures from Western nations. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.